All right, and away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you by Bearcat Journal right here on BearcatJournal.com. Brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken. I'm distracted. Sorry. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. And get down to Dayton, Kentucky. They'll be back open tomorrow. Tell them to pump it up. Save yourself 15%. Get some delivery on Uber Eats if you can't make it down.
At least you got the name of the show right this time.
I did get the name of the show right this time. But this time, I was distracted.
You got a new toy. I get it.
Should we show them what it looks like?
I would be shocked if you didn't. Got your neon light right there.
Ooh. The problem is, it's a little too neon.
Too bright.
You want to see me turn it on? Whoa! We're working on solutions, one step at a time. I guess I should have got those one. Those should have been black, I think, or everything. I don't know. It's too bright. We're working on solutions. All right, let's get this show on the road, Aaron. It's Tuesday.
It is,
which is
Luke Fickell
presser day. It is practice day. It is get a chance to kind of gauge the team, get a feel for things. I liked what I saw.
Okay.
I like where their heads are at. I think it was very, very businesslike. Practice was, as you could imagine, rather physical. No surprise there.
Probably needed to be.
Yeah, it was. I talked to Dylan O'Quinn afterwards. We haven't heard from Dio in a while.
We'll get to that. I have plenty of questions.
Yeah. And then Luke Fickell's press conference. I'm sure you've watched both. You've got questions about both. So let's have at it. Fire away, Aaron. Aaron. There we go.
Sure.
Now you're the captain.
So Luke talked in his presser. Obviously, he addressed the helmets again, as I asked him about after the game. Yeah. That's certainly something that's going to be worked on. It's just funny to see this question continue to come up as we were all discussing it. I'm surprised nobody else asked it because we were all discussing it up in the press box. We all discussed it on the way down to the presser after the game. So in any case, just kind of cool that a question that I ended up actually getting out there is continuing to be talked about. But it was bound to happen regardless. Sure. That was just a little self-promotion. But
don't hurt your elbow.
It's fine. I don't to hear him talk about the fact that he recognized that the team wasn't necessarily physical enough, wasn't necessarily gritty enough, especially in the tackling. I can't imagine that's an easy thing for him to admit. And for him to seem not in just a shit mood in that presser, because he seemed, all in all, he seemed positive about where the direction of the team is going. And I don't know, did that surprise you to see him admit that they may not have been physical enough and kind of shot themselves in the foot, but at the same time be positive about the trajectory of the team?
No, I mean, I think he kind of came away with what we all came away with, right? Like, it's a game they could have won. Mm-hmm. They didn't execute. They didn't they weren't clean to the best of their ability. And
probably an understatement, if we're being honest.
I'm sure some of that is having a new roster, a mostly new group of guys on the field. And we talked about, there's in the long run, it's going to help because there's a lot of veterans in that group that are taking over. But that doesn't erase that Saturday was the first time out. Like, that doesn't go away. So now you just get back to the drawing board. I like that apparently they came in on Sunday and wanted to get back out on the field. Like they had that bad taste in their mouth.
I like that both coach and Dio kind of both got to the fact that everybody who they have to play is going to have to deal with the fact that they lost game one, and they are not going to go down quietly the rest of the season.
It felt like a pretty angry bunch today. Like there weren't a lot of smiles.
I got that undertone, but at the same time, I was almost a lighthearted Vic, I thought, in his presser.
He wasn't lighthearted at practice.
Okay, then that's maybe he got it all out before he was in front of the mics.
Whatever lighthearted there may have been, it did not carry over to the field.
No, I did watch the presser on the Cincinnati's main YouTube, and I wasn't able to hear questions really, right. So I couldn't really tell what players outside of Ivan and Ryan Coe anybody was really being talked about. Like I'm sure there were some guys. I mean, there was obviously they were talking about younger guys. I think Jaquan was mentioned at one point during one of the questions.
He did talk about Shep a little bit, yeah.
And I could tell that there were some younger guys on the defensive line, and I'm not sure who exactly was being referred to at certain points.
It was basically that group of four of Eric Phillips, Corleone, Watley, and Noah Potter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it seemed like you also had a chance to talk about Corey Kiner as well. But I think the biggest thing that stands out is just the fact that he admitted that maybe I didn't take the right stance during camp, especially with this particular group, in not having physical practices the way that maybe they have in the past, or maybe other teams do when they have a new core nucleus coming in, because guys don't necessarily know how to tackle in general or react when being tackled.
Yeah, I mean it's a
tough.
fine line. It's a fine line.
I get it.
Because, if you're out there just being crazy and just hitting the crap out of each other,
someone's going to get injured.
Right. And so I don't know. I don't know the right answer, because I definitely don't think like we talked to Tony about it a couple weeks ago, last week. Like, he loves going to UC practices because they're physical.
By comparison to the Bengals,
it's not like they're the Bengals where they're playing patty cake for 3 weeks. Like, it's physical, but you're not bringing guys all the way to the ground. But I do think maybe there's a level of like, when you thud so much, which is basically just like putting your shoulder into somebody and letting them go. I wonder how much of that becomes muscle memory, right? Like, that's what you're programmed mentally to do. How much of that is a matter of like retraining yourself, wrap this guy up and get him to the ground, when you're not doing that for such a large portion of camp.
Yeah, and I guess that was the only big recurring theme that I caught, was just the team wanting to get more physical, wanting to get back essentially in the lab. He seemed encouraged by a lot of things he saw on tape, but obviously he's recognizing and admitting fault in the lack of discipline, especially in regards to the penalties, that he thinks that they can tighten up. And I don't think you're going to see a team that has, what was it, 2-3 years ago, where they were second in all of NCAA as far as.
But then the year before that, they were like last. So it's been a back and forth, if you will.
Sure. I just don't think that we're going to continue to see penalties pile up the way that they did, especially in the same drive, even as you saw.
Yeah, and you got to remember, I do think there is something you have to like consider on that, with Renfro being out,
right?
A line that really, that particular unit worked together for 4 days. Because Gavin wasn't taking, reps with the ones.
Sure.
And, Gavin was taking the left guard reps. Coop, just a lot of stuff that if it could go wrong, it did go wrong.
Gavin and Coop weren't taking reps at the same time at any point, really,
ever,
right?
Right, because they were subbing for each other.
Right.
So, I don't know. And that's not to make excuses for it. It has to get fixed.
Yes.
But I think far too often in society, we label something as an excuse instead of looking at it as a reason. And you can fix reasons, right?
Yeah.
You can take what happened.
This cause and effect, right? This is
Right.
what's wrong. This is how we
fix it.
Here's how we get from here to there.
But everybody's so quick. Oh, you're making excuses. You're making excuses. No, I'm giving you reasons. It's not on me to get from point A to point B. It's on them to get from point A to point B.
But if they can recognize why they didn't get there the first time,
right,
fix it, and then hopefully get there. So no, I think it's definitely an interesting conversation. And again, like we're not accustomed to this, especially in the regular season, to see, first off, you mentioned it several times. I think even in the DO interview, but it's been over 1,000 days since Cincinnati lost in the regular season. So we're not really used to having to see Coach Fick out there having to own up to the reasons as to why a Cincinnati team
think about this,
lost a regular season game.
In 1,000 days, over 1,000 days, they haven't had a practice after a loss.
It's crazy.
Right? Because you don't practice after the bowl game. You go home for a couple weeks.
That's it. The end.
Yeah.
Like for some guys, some guys never practice again.
Right. That thought was wild to me. Anything on the DO interview that stood out?
Yeah, I got to see a little bit different side of Dylan O'Quinn than I think we're accustomed to seeing. We got to see a little bit of personality from him, which that's been few and far between as far as in front of a camera. I got to see some of that when I was at Higher Ground, as he did have his son.
Yeah, plenty of it. Like,
sure, it's because he's not a quiet guy in just general. Like kind of keeping to himself, a la Joe Huber. Joe Huber is an actual quiet guy. Dylan O'Quinn is not a quiet guy, but he's also not one to put himself out there necessarily.
Right. He's not overly like looking for the attention, looking for the spotlight per se.
So we got to see a little bit of that, especially when he was making the joke. I had a kid. I guess I didn't have a kid. Only Des had a kid.
I wanted to take him there. Like I knew that would get a little bit of personality out of him because they're pretty similar in age.
More so than that, though, getting to see him talk about being a leader and some of the changes that he's just kind of made in himself to work on that and being a vocal leader as opposed to just being the guy who is lead by example guy and trying to cast his shadow and hope that people fall in behind.
That was a big step at camp, that night practice, for him to like pull the O-line group and be the voice of that group. Like that's not generally who he is, but those guys all look up to and admire him. Sure. So it was time for him to step into that role.
Well, and as much as he's teased about not being as fun since he had a kid, I'm sure there's a certain level of that fatherhood and the role that he's kind of had stepped into in that regard that transfers to being a leader and why the guys look up to him. Like, you're not the guy out here making an ass of yourself, partying or something like that, or
you're not putting your head in a fan anymore, Dio.
So I don't know. It was good to see that personality of his come out, because I don't know that anyone really prior to that interview can say that they felt like they knew who Dylan O'Quinn was.
Yeah, I think that was that worked out great. So good stuff from Dio. So
what are you looking forward to from what Fickle said with Kennesaw? Just no deep thoughts. I'm not trying to get in the weeds on this. Just in regards to what he said.
State's in trouble.
I also, it's more so what Dylan O'Quinn had to say than what Luke Fickle had to say. I think Kennesaw State's in trouble.
I think that's a team that's got a bad taste it really wants to get out of its mouth.
That's about the best way we can put it.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here. You got PTP. Make sure you go check that out.
Yeah, new format tonight. New format tonight.
I'll let you guys handle that. I'm gonna rest. I'm tired.
Heard that before.
Yeah, seen that before, but I'm tired. We'll see you next time. It's the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!